All right. So I'm Dina Liebman. I'm the Executive Director of Future Harvest, and it is just very heartening to have so many of you join this call. It is heartening to see our community come together and so willing to share with each other how we're going to meet these challenges and perhaps some opportunities that lie ahead. So people are facing empty grocery store shelves, and people don't even want to walk into grocery stores just now. So we're hearing from our farmers, we have our ear to the ground on the internet, and farmers are writing us that that consumers are turning in droves to local farmers for safe, fresh food. And this means we farmers have to hustle, and we have to adapt to meet this demand in safe ways and with abundant supply. So it is just becoming so clear that this pandemic is nothing short of a blaring wake-up call. The security of our region hinges now and always on a safe, steady regional food supply. We cannot depend on a global supply chain so vulnerable to disruptions like this pandemic and the trade wars. This is a moment we must seize to win the hearts and minds of consumers and policymakers to drive home the critical role our community plays in feeding our people. I wish I could see all your faces. We had probably about 240 people register for this call. So like you, we had to pivot from the intimate farmer to farmer chat that we had envisioned toward a new format. So we asked some of our premier table food farmers to speak with us in a sort of panel format. And we also have a food safety expert who will be speaking, and they'll speak one after the other. But we still very much want to hear from everybody on the call. So we're going to make big use of the chat function, which is on the lower center of your screen. Enter your name and affiliation only if you want, just so others can see who's on the call. You can also push the participants list and see who's on the call. This is totally optional. You can use the chat, and we encourage this, to ask questions of the panel after our, during or after our farmers speak. Well, after our farmers speak, we'll have a Future Harvest staff person pulling your questions from the chat and asking the panel to respond. She will also be reading any of your own ideas and tips that you might share in the chat. We will not be able to get to all of them, but I'll speak a little bit more about that in a second. In the chat, we also ask that you suggest what Future Harvest can do to help farmers weather this storm and how we can keep this conversation going during this crisis. And one more thing we're asking you to put in the chat is if you have any suggestions for policy changes we need to champion, to seize this moment to strengthen our regional food supply. So please note, we won't be able to get to all the questions and tips, but we will download the chat discussion into a fax doc and send it out to participants on the call and post it to our resource page. And in that doc, we'll try to answer all the unanswered questions. Also note that our food safety expert, Lindsay Gilmore, is available for one-on-one consultations, and she will post her email into the chat. She's an amazing resource for how you can adapt your practices to, well, in general, be more safe, but also how you can pivot to meet the peculiarities of the coronavirus. And one more note, we are pleased to have reporters on this call, so please note that your chats might make it into the public sphere. So let me begin just by running through what Future Harvest is doing other than holding this call and perhaps future ones. We have created, and links are being posted into the chat. So you can click on those links to access what I'm about to talk about. We have a COVID crisis resource page on our website now. We're constantly updating it. We're constantly curating it. We have a link now to a find a farmer or market map. And we created this with the Maryland Farmers Market Association and other partners. Producers, click on this link, fill out this form, and you'll get listed within 24 hours. We've had more than 15,000 map views in just a few days, and we have about 500 listings from farmers. So get yourself listed on that map. Tomorrow, Future Harvest will be hosting a webinar called Food Safety in the Times of Coronavirus. Our field school program is shifting online for now, so stay tuned for updates. You can also check our website. We're considering starting a farmer relief fund, but we're not quite sure how it's going to operate, and we might need some of you to be advisors. So if you're willing to be an advisor and help us shape what that would look like and how it would get distributed, please enter your name in the chat. Is there anything else we can do? Again, list your ideas in the chat. So without further ado, we go to our speakers. Thank you so much for taking time from this just crazy topsy-turvy time we're in. We have Emma Jagos of Moon Valley Farm, Becky Gurley of Calvert's Gift Farm, Mike Protus and Charlotte Henderson of One Acre Farm, and Lindsay Gilmore, who's our food safety expert again. They'll be speaking one by one. And then again, we will read questions for the panelists. And again, we'll be curating the chat. So I'm going to turn it over now to Emma.
Hi, everyone. I'm Emma Jagaz. I manage Moon Valley Farm, which recently relocated to Frederick County from Baltimore County in Maryland. We grow vegetables and herbs, and we work with several other partner farms throughout the region to provide mushrooms and grains and beans for our customers. We typically—
Emma, do you want to share your slides?
Sure. We typically grow for a 52-week. So every week we grow for, we deliver to restaurants in Baltimore and DC. And we have a 33-week CSA program as well, which starts in May and ends in the end of December. So 100% of our sales from January through April are typically sold to restaurants besides CSA prepayments. Which we do get some of, but we have more monthly payment CSA members than ever before in recent years. So most of our cash flow is from restaurants, which you all know dried up pretty hard the last week. So let's see, how do I make, there we go. In addition to growing for CSA and to restaurants, we do grow seedlings as well for sale. And we do pop-up markets in the spring and offer on-farm plant sales as well. That's a pretty small part of our business. And we do also a small part of our business in wholesale to area makers. But for the most part, we're restaurant-based. And 2020 is our 9th year in business. So just last weekend, when it was clear that the pandemic was going to cause most of our restaurants to close down, whether by force or by choice, we decided to pivot and offer a home delivery for our CSA members and also for folks who are not our CSA members but are in the delivery zone of Baltimore and DC, where we would normally be going on twice a week. In part, I offered this because I knew that we needed somewhere for our vegetables to go. But in part because I really wanted to keep our drivers employed. And I knew that I didn't really know if we would get any restaurant sales or not. But I really wanted to keep them driving so that I wouldn't have to make deliveries whether or not we got sales. So it was a pivot for us because you know, we don't typically offer CSA in March, but it wasn't too much of a pivot. It was a pivot, not a leap, because we already had CSA members and we already had a lot of the packaging already prepared for to-go CSA shares. So I wanted to write a couple tips on pivoting because I know a lot of people are trying to think of new markets right now. I think one of the biggest ways to pivot is to take a deep breath and to step back from your situation and try to step into your customer's situation. Say, like, think about your avatar, who your main customer is, and think about what their needs are right now and how you've traditionally served them and how you might be able to serve them in the future. I always recommend calling your customers just to check in with them. I think that's a great thing to do on a regular basis, calling your best customers and seeing how you could support them. I would also think about what resources or what parts of your business you have that are maybe small parts of your business that you could grow at this time. You know, for me, we have a small amount of wholesale. I'm thinking, well, maybe if restaurants aren't able to reopen, we could increase our wholesale a little bit. I know that restaurants are in need right now. I mean, not restaurants, grocery stores are in need of product. Restaurants are in need of cash. And what other services that your customers have asked you for that you might be able to offer them now? Maybe it's plant sales or something like that. I strongly believe gardening is going to be pretty hip in 2020. And so maybe you haven't had the time or bandwidth or capacity or interest in offering seedlings, but maybe this would be a great year to say, oh yeah, we do always have extra seedlings. Maybe we can plant a few extra flats, something like that, and tap into what you're already good at and see if you can grow those. Customer acquisition is going to be really important at this time because, especially for folks who have lost most of their customers. So trying to think of ways to acquire customers without adding too much cost. Again, thinking of people in your networks who have already asked you for services you might be able to provide for them without adding too much cost to you. Because I know that right now, most people are trying to think of ways to control their own spending. So for us, this is not at all an exhaustive list. But changes that we've made on our farm because of the coronavirus, we're sanitizing a lot more. We, in our pack shed, we sanitize before and after working anyway. But I posted more signage. In our morning meeting, we talk about hand washing every single day. We have a whiteboard in the front of our group room where we have meetings, and it just has a giant list of reminders. So that is hand washing. We've watched hand washing videos. The one that I found the most helpful is someone with gloves on who used black paint or black ink or something on their hands to show visually where hand washing techniques work and do not work on your hands. So we've shared videos. I've done in-person demonstrations. We remind the happy birthday, singing the happy birthday twice for everybody. And so I did post more hand washing reminders. Again, we did already have them up in our pack shed anyway, but I put them on several more spaces. I sent a memo to all of my employees about how you should stay home if you're sick at all. You should stay home if somebody in your house is sick, if your spouse or partner is sick, if somebody in your house is sick. And we are saying that it's just paid time off for everybody to incentivize people to not hide symptoms. Fortunately for us, we just built a new pack shed and it is spacious. So we were able to put our workstations really far apart from one another. So definitely 6 feet apart is, or more is everyone's workstation. We have a small crew right now, so it's really no big deal to be farther apart in the pack shed. But we do work at least 6 feet apart, and when we're unable to, for example, in the water wheel transplanter, the 2 people can't sit that far apart. We wear masks. And something we've added as well is talking with our employees about what they're doing off the farm and sharing how important it is to us for them to stay home as much as possible, for them to be to have some things in their vehicles for when they're pumping gas, for example, maybe take a pair of gloves so that when you pump gas and keep hand sanitizer in your vehicle, that kind of thing. When you're touching shared surfaces that are in public that you can't avoid going to, please, be cautious about that. Don't go in gatherings, that kind of thing. So we're talking with our staff about all of that as well. I did want to say that we're all in this together. I do think that a silver lining of this horrible pandemic is that we can share a message that says local is the new normal. I think that people more than ever have the time and bandwidth and capacity because a lot of people are home and are really considering their new sources for where they get things. People are thinking, oh, that grocery store produce section was kind of gross. A lot of people did touch that. I wonder what I should do about this. And I think that they're considering local as a safer option now more than ever, and we should second that message. So I suggest a hashtag, local is the new normal.
That's great.
And that's really all I have. So you can find us at Moon Valley Farm, my website, moonvalleyfarm.net, and you can send me an email if you have any questions or if anyone's interested in chatting more about what to do in their business.
Thank you, Emma. That was great. And I love the hashtag. So, okay, Becky, you're up next. And can you stop sharing your screen, Emma?
Yes.
Do I need to share mine?
No, I think you're okay.
It'll come out. Okay.
Yeah, so this is Becky Gurley and Jack Gurley in the background.
Back there somewhere.
I might
And
eat lunch in a little bit.
longtime members, founders of Future Harvest. They run Calvert's Gift Farm and an aggregator called Chesapeake Farm to Table. So hit it, Becky.
Okay, so a little background on Calvert's Gift Farm. We are entering our 25th year as a certified organic vegetable farm. We have always had 3 sort of arms, and I apologize for not having any slides. It just didn't really fit into my schedule this week. We've always had sort of 3 arms of our business, and it was CSA, farmers market, and restaurant sales. So, and now that it's mid-March, we have a pretty much of a skeleton crew working here. We usually don't have everybody on full blast until the 1st of April. As far as Calvert's Gift Farm goes, so we have a food safety plan in place. We've always had one. We are looking at it, you know, every day. We're encouraging our employees. Obviously, they're going to be washing their hands. We are all paying attention. I do agree with Emma's local is the new normal. I think that this is the moment we've all been waiting for as local farmers. This is just, you know, I don't want to say it's a fabulous opportunity, but I think we deserve it. We've been talking about this for a really long time, and I'm glad that people are looking to us for food. Again, all of our employees go through our food safety training. You know, they read the manual, they watch the video. We have hand washing stations. I hope I don't run out of paper towels. I think we're gonna be okay. We are cleaning. And in the packing shed, we are a little overwhelmed right now, and I'll get to that in a minute, but we are putting some systems in place as we go. As Emma said, you know, we are making our workstations separate and, you know, doing our best with the social distancing. So with our sort of three-pronged business plan at Calvert Skiff Farm, our CSA hasn't started yet. So we're not terribly worried about that at this point. We are getting a lot of course, calls for people wanting to join. Our farmers markets, this is very interesting because we are about to start all our markets mid-April. We just started back with one this past Sunday. So some markets in the area I know have closed or delaying opening. So the market we went to this weekend is determined to be open. We moved to a new location so that we could encourage social distancing. Our setup was much smaller. We only, at this point, and that whole thing is in flux, but I only have room for 2 people to work at the market stand as opposed to 3 or 4. So we're trying to implement how it actually works, that one person's handling the food and one is handling money. We packaged everything, which is a little different. Usually I have big baskets of greens and I dish them out as we go. But in this case, we're packaging everything. The few things that we couldn't package, we have some radishes and some onion scallions. I am picking them up with tongs and putting them into bags. And at that market, most people bring their own bags. We are encouraging our customers, you know, to practice that social distancing, not to touch anything. And so this weekend, all the customers were just really polite and civil and kind and understanding about the whole deal. So we expect our other 2 markets to open on time and for them to go on as planned. There's a lot of room when we're out at those other 2 markets. So we think that the social distancing piece is going to be there. Be available. So the packaging thing is the one thing that we really had to change as far as our food safety practices at the market. So then the third arm of our business focuses on restaurant sales. And so with our restaurant sales several years ago, we realized we were tripping over some other farmers in getting our produce down the road. So we all banded together and created Chesapeake Farm to Table. So it is an online marketplace, and we have 27 farms on it currently that all, so it's all web-based. The farmers can post on the site, customers order off the site, and we have 2 delivery days. So that has been totally aimed at the restaurants and other commercial accounts. We've always had a few home sales, but we never really concentrated on them very much for various reasons. So after last week, we went from 95% restaurant customers and 5% home customers to 100% home customers. So we have, the business there has really picked up, and we are doing home deliveries. the participating farmers that are coming into the farm, on here, because so Chesapeake Farm to Table acts as an aggregator. And as we have, we are just organizing every day and making sure that the farmers are coming in and that they all have food safety plans in place. We already know that. That's a requirement of being a member of our little cooperative. So they all have food safety plans. They come in and all of the food is pre-packed. And then it gets packaged for the home customers, and then out the door it goes. Let's see, let me see if there's any other notes I have. So I think that going forward, our biggest challenge is going to be the farmers markets, and make sure that they are going to remain open and that folks are still going to be coming out. Do you have anything to add?
No, I think Becky summed it up pretty well. I mean, the only thing that we have encountered some challenges, delivery of our delivery thing is much larger than what we ever envisioned it would be. And that's created some issues with just putting systems in place to do deliveries effectively. We've had to, bring on, fortunately, a lot of our neighbors, they're not really busy right now. So we've been able to get some extra help, and that's been a big hand for us to be able to get stuff done. But I think Becky pretty much summed it up.
So is that it? Anything
I
more
think
to
so.
share?
Pardon me?
Anything more to share?
Not that I can think of. Maybe we'll get some questions though.
We probably would have had more to share, but we have been so busy keeping up with everything. We just have not had time to really even this is like the one time in the last week where I've sat down for 5 minutes.
And the one interesting thing that for us, it's almost a good time of year that this happened to all the farmers, because it's not like we're sitting on all our produce. It's not the height of the summer. We have a lot now because Calvert's Gift Farm is actually very strong as far as the spring goes. We've always been strong that way. So we do have a lot of produce and we're able to get it out the door. I'm glad that this didn't happen in July, because I think the whole farming community would be even harder because we'd all have so much stuff. And right now that it's so early in the season, we can change our crop schedule a little bit to accommodate this mess.
One thing that I notice about it as a farmer is it's like we grow stuff sort of for our CSA, we grow stuff for the farmers market, and we grow stuff for restaurants. Well, if restaurants don't come back online, some of those items that we grow for restaurants really are not as desirable for, say, a home person or at a farmer's market. So I'm finding that I have to rethink about some of the things that we were planning on growing. We've grown a bunch of hot peppers for restaurants. Maybe that's not such a good idea. Maybe we need to plant green peppers, which I hate, but so some of those things, we changed around one of the things we were doing in the high tunnel because I knew I needed to get a crop in the ground and out quickly, as opposed to what I actually had in there at the time. So little things like that, little tweaks as a farmer, you think ahead a little bit about what the landscape is going to look like a couple months down the road. And maybe you shouldn't be growing some of the things that you had originally intended.
Great, that's good. You are getting questions. Your name says Taylor, but
Yes, it does. I'm sorry, I'm using Taylor's computer.
yeah, I know. So a note to Gail, there's a question in the chat that says to Taylor, but that's really to Becky. Okay. All right, so Lori, please unmute Mike and Charlotte. They're next. They're from One Acre Farm in Moco, Montgomery County.
Hello, everybody. How are you today? Everybody can hear me. Dina, you can nod. You hear me?
I can hear you, Charlotte. You're off the screen, so if you could move over.
Well, we're trying to social distance, but we're not letting us because you're making us work so next to each other. So, number one, I can't tell you how not prepared I am to be speaking to a group via FaceTime or Zoom So I'm going to try my best. This is not my forte, and I actually don't even know why we were asked to participate, but we are going to do as best we can. And I encourage you guys to ask questions because I don't have that much to say, and Charlotte hopefully will have more to say. But the first thing we're going to do is show our screen that Charlotte put together, which is, I'm going to look at myself for the first time as well.
I'm just gonna share the screen.
Okay. So just while she's doing that, so we are a small scale vegetable farm in Montgomery County. We're starting our 12th year, and yeah, that's the name of it. We started 12 years ago on 1 acre, and now we're about 7 acres of vegetables in the outside of Montgomery County in Dickerson. So we've been for the last 12 years a grocery style kind of only CSA farm. So we're only really growing vegetables from June, or harvesting vegetables, I should say, from June to November. I never did, and actually this is one of the big things I've taken away from this whole coronavirus thing. I've never really thought of us as vital to our community. I've always thought of this farm, honestly, if I can be honest, as kind of like a vanity project for myself, maybe to boost my own ego to see if I could do it, maybe. Not really like I thought this was something that was really important in the grand scheme of things. But these, and sometimes I do think about the fact that we're doing something beneficial for the world, but never really thought about it as a major reason for me to wake up in the morning. I just thought it was a neat thing to do. Now, with all that's going on, I've kind of changed my tune a little bit. And so, for example, I never had a hoop house. Why did I never have a hoop house? I didn't think a hoop house was really the money we would make in the wintertime to sell, you know, the radishes or the kale or the lettuce. It didn't make sense to me. But now I'm starting to realize maybe we should be trying to find, and you might be rolling your eyes, so I apologize. Maybe we should be trying to figure out ways to feed our local community on a more year-round level. So that's something new for me. That was obvious, I'm sure, to everybody else on this phone call or Zoom, but not as obvious to me. So I'm waking up as well. So we have a subsidized. So we also, last year we started real fast a subsidized farmers market at Adventist Healthcare. Now, in theory, that is supposed to continue to go on this year. We just got off the phone with our
The head of HR.
thank you, head of HR at Adventist, saying, hey, we are still going to do this. The employees of Adventist really do appreciate this subsidized farmers market. And basically how it works, long story short, if you work for Adventist and make X amount of dollars, you get a reduced rate. So you might get 75% off of the retail price of whatever we're selling in that week. And we're the only ones at that farmers market. So we can kind of set it up, and I guess for social distancing purposes, we'll figure out a way. We haven't talked about that much yet because we're trying to do other things first, but we will figure out, since we're the only ones there, we will kind of monitor. And what would you say about that? Anything?
We'll just try to distance it as much as
Whatever,
possible.
sure. Okay, great. Employees, we have 3 full-time employees, including, I guess, me, and 2 seasonal people that we're going to be starting up in a little bit. Some of the things we don't have, and I don't know who's on this phone call that's going to bust us later. We don't have a food safety plan at the moment. I'm sure we were supposed to be doing that at some point, and we will now be more seriously writing it. Whatever. Whoever needs to reach out to me and say, hey, you're in trouble, you need to do that, then fine. I apologize, we'll do it. But yes, we've always done kind of, sanitizing our bins, washing hands, yes, of course. But what other thing? We use biodegradable produce bags at all our markets, so we don't. One of our neighboring farms, she really was big into not allowing people to bring their reusable bags because she doesn't know what is in that bag before you brought it to her farm market. So I've always kind of taken that in the back of my mind and saying, hey, reusable bags are good, but when you put produce into it, you should probably put it into a biodegradable bag or a plastic bag first to keep it as safe as possible. So God forbid they don't have a food safety issue with something that was remaining or growing in those kind of reusable bags that kind of get gross. I don't know if there's any questions yet, but I'm not going to answer your question, am I, Charlotte?
Let's see.
All right.
Not
So
yet.
not yet. Good.
Okay.
Is anybody even still awake? That's the question I want to know. So pickups this year, our concepts are basically only having employees deal with our CSA, considering we do the grocery store that we're going to switch probably very quickly to make it that the employees only are the ones that are bagging everybody's shares and do a pre-bagged share. And we're also, some of our locations are kind of, one of our locations in Capitol Hill and DC is a kind of tight garage. So what our thought process is, pack everybody shares using
Bulb crates
Thank you.
and bio bags.
bulb crates and biodegradable bags. and then pack them here at our farm in our packing shed, which is fairly large. And so we can kind of be apart from each other doing that in theory. And then when we get to Capitol Hill, if we don't do home delivery, which we're certainly in the process of thinking about at the moment, if we aren't able to do that, maybe just have Charlotte, for example, go into the cooler or go into the garage, grab the share, and then bring it out to them. So that's some of the things we're thinking about. Now, I always get stressed when I watch these things because I'm thinking about all the other ways that farms are better than ours. So if you're one of those kinds of farms that says like, hey, we're not doing any of that stuff yet, or we're already doing all of that, then great. But I think personally for me, you have to just take all this information you're learning from the other farms and maybe from me and say, what are the small steps we can do today that we can implement, because it's stressful for me and I'm sure it's stressful for you as well. What can we do to kind of begin the process of thinking about this differently? So I always, when I learned a couple of years ago, we're supposed to be using Sanidate in our wash water, I was like, oh, screw that, I'm not doing that. And then I thought about it for a second. It's not that big of a deal to add a little teaspoon or whatever it was, a quarter of a cup of Sanidate to your wash water to sterilize your wash water. So those are kind of simple steps that when I started doing this, there's no way I was doing any of that stuff. I wasn't paying attention to food safety when I owed it 12 or 15 years ago, whatever it was. Now I realize we should be paying more attention to it. So shame on me, but that's the thing. That's all part of the learning curve of doing this. And I don't expect anybody to just start farming week one and know how to do all this stuff. It's just not the way it works. So I think you have to take everything you're learning today seriously, but also be able to do it. Don't make perfection the enemy of whatever the expression is, because I think that's a barrier to entry, and then people will get very nervous about doing anything. I don't think that's quite good either. We do as growers need to kind of grow, and we're not perfect. So if that makes any sense, probably not. Let's keep going. Communicating with our members. So we are talking with our members, whether they're reading these emails or not. I don't know about you. I get constant emails, and I just always just delete. So I'm sure if anybody gets an email from me, they just swipe to the left and it's deleted. But in theory, there should be reading these emails saying, hey, these are the deals this is the kind of steps we're trying to take. I am reluctantly using Instagram and Facebook about how food security is a major issue right now. And I think I definitely agree with Becky's point that this is a good time because, you know, I got a side note real fast. A call the other day. We bought this farm 3 years ago, and we have neighbors. And somebody finally called me the other day, say, "Hey, we're your neighbors. We never introduced ourselves, but we'd love to join your farm this year." What I wanted to say was, "What the heck? We've been here for 3 years. Now you want to reach out to me and say hello? Like, where was that? Where were you when I've been sitting here sucking wind trying to get members?" So I find it obnoxious, but I understand that we also have to. What's the point of that?
Open our
Hey,
doors.
I guess we had to. Yeah.
We're getting a request for you to advance your slides.
So we're done.
You're done with your slides?
Yeah, we're done with our slides. So
this
that's
is
it.
it can be the last one.
That's the last one.
Okay. So why don't you unshare your screen,
I can do that.
and then it's just your pretty face. Okay.
Okay, there's my pretty face. So I guess my point is people are starting to realize that this is important, and shame on them for not realizing it sooner, but better late than never, and especially for someone like me who didn't think of this as such an important thing for the world. Maybe it is more important. If that makes any sense to you, it kind of, when I'm saying it out loud, hopefully it makes sense to me. Ellen, you will give me feedback later saying I have no idea what I'm talking about, and I appreciate that, Ellen. I'm sorry. So I will take questions if there are any, or we can wait till the end. The last thing I'll say is, how much time do we got?
Just a minute or so, and then we're going to go to Lindsay, and then.
Let's go to Lindsay.
Okay. Lindsay, you're up. Lori, you're going to have to unmute her. And then there are a lot of questions scrolling in the chat. So Gail Taylor on our staff is curating those, and we'll be asking the speakers to answer them. So Lindsay, you're up, and why don't you share your screen? Okay.
Mm-hmm. All right. So hang on. Everybody gave great advice on food safety. I feel like I'm a little redundant today, but I wanted to just give you some of the info that's going across the desks of people who think about food safety all the time. To start with here, I guess I should introduce myself. I'm Lindsay Gilmore. I am sitting here in Philadelphia this morning, and I am the food safety educator working with Future Harvest and Chesapeake Harvest, for the last 4 years now, providing food safety education specifically on produce safety to the Chesapeake region, doing workshops, working with farmers one-on-one to write food safety plans and get audit ready if that's what they wish. So I have a slide at the end of this with contact information and information on stuff that's coming up. So I saw a letter this morning from Frank Yayanis, I guess is how you say his name, Deputy Commissioner at the Food Policy at the FDA. So one thing to be clear about, the US food supply remains safe. There's no evidence of human or animal food or food packaging being associated with the transmission of coronavirus that causes COVID-19. So while food safety is still extremely important, right now there's no reason for customers to panic about food safety. For those of you who are having to comply with the FSMA produce safety rule, they have postponed routine surveillance inspections for farms and other human and food facilities. But if for some reason somebody thinks they've gotten sick from food, they will definitely be coming to your place of business. So that's the 4 cause when a potential threat to public health is identified. Hang on. So again, I think most people realize this, not again, but I think most people realize this at this point, that workers in food and the agriculture sector are considered essential critical infrastructure workers. The FDA is working to address any challenges. So if there are quarantines, if there are travel restrictions, if there are curfews, actually the resources that Future Harvest has put together, there was a link to those, and I have a link to one in one of my slides. There's some great information in there about a letter that people should carry if they're traveling back and forth to work in case they might get stopped. And then I did email with Deanna Baldwin from Maryland Department of Ag this morning asking if GAP audits are postponed, and the Maryland GAP audits or inspections are postponed unless a buyer will not accept the produce without the updated certificate. So everybody gets an audit annually, or a Maryland GAP inspection annually, or some other kind of GAP audit annually. And your certificate of saying that you passed your audit is it only lasts for a year. So unless your buyer is saying, okay, I'll wait, I'll let you extend the life of your certificate, then you have to be inspected or audited. The USDA is going ahead with audits, I can get really tangled up with the food safety stuff, but very often, and in this area definitely, state departments of ag do USDA GAP audits on behalf of the USDA. And they have not heard at this point that they can stop doing those audits. Let's see. Yeah. So number one, and I have to say, I've been speaking with some farmers in the last week or so who are still not taking the coronavirus seriously. And I'm supposed to be going out and doing farm visits, so I'm calling them up and saying I won't be coming for a couple of weeks at least, because I've been traveling, and some people will say, oh yeah, well, I got back from Costa Rica a week ago and I feel fine. So it's really important, and perhaps by now they are taking it seriously, but because things are changing daily, but I think it is really important that you take it seriously. It's really important that your customers know that you're taking it seriously, and that you care about your workers, your customers, your family's safety. So it could be helpful for you to send out a statement to your customers and friends and family saying that you're taking this very seriously. There are amazing resources that North Carolina State University has created, this whole suite of one-page really succinct fact sheets and advisories that I would recommend you take a look at. They'll be up on the resource page on the Future Harvest website. This is the website here. Just so many different things that are really helpful that you can post at your point of sale. You can share with your customers. You can share with people who are concerned. Things like this. So steps for farm managers. And I have borrowed outrageously from these today. I'm probably not going to say a whole lot about the specifics of food safety because frankly, the farmers who came before me talked about it very eloquently, but there may be a couple of things that I can add. So best practices for farmers markets and on-farm sales. Sampling, stop doing it. Personnel, absolutely practice hand washing and social distancing. Again, the Future Harvest resources have some really great information on how to do social distancing at a farmer's market or on-farm sales. And I really recommend that you take a look at that. Employees should wash hands or hand sanitize after every transaction. Wear long sleeves, use gloves when handling payment, and as much as possible encourage ways of for people to pay so that you don't have to handle their money or their card. And wear gloves when handling and packaging items for customers. Of course, limit customer volume. Limit the number of people who can come onto your property. Of course, postpone any large events or gatherings. Washing hands, can never say it enough, can never tell people enough how to do it properly. Yes, I took a quick look at the video with the gloves and the ink. I thought that was really a good one, and it's kind of funny. It always helps to be a little funny when you're talking about food safety, but it's very real. I don't usually, well, actually, those of us in food safety don't usually promote the use of hand sanitizer, so this is a little bit different for us. In this time of COVID-19, hand sanitizing is not usually considered a good replacement for hand washing. However, we're just in a crisis moment, and there are going to be times when you simply can't wash your hands quickly enough. So a hand sanitizer that's at least 60% alcohol is going to help you there. And one of the advisories on the NC State resource page is describes how to make a homemade hand sanitizer. So that could be helpful for people who are having trouble finding it. And this particular advisory, I cut it down in my screenshot, but that's a really good one to put up if you don't have signs yet telling people to wash hands. Now, a really important thing, when you wear gloves, you've got to do it properly. At my local co-op, it's driving me crazy. They have boxes of gloves out there, but they're not telling people that you have to wash your hands or sanitize your hands before you put the gloves on. People are digging into that box of gloves with their dirty hands. So it's very important if you use gloves to do it properly. And when you put the gloves on, you are not invincible. Your hands the gloves become your skin, and you have to treat it as if it's your hand that is touching things, not just the gloves. So keep that.
Can I interject and say that I am telling my employees also that their phone should be treated
Yes.
as a third hand?
Yes.
And that they need to leave their phones in their cars or sanitize them.
Yeah, so that's a good use for a Clorox wipe. And some people have been, I mean, this is something we talk about all the time with farmers. Some people put them into a new Ziploc bag and put it somewhere safe. But of course, then the bag can get dirty. So yeah, better if you don't need your phone, put it away somewhere. If you do need your phone, have some Clorox wipes around or Sanidate wipes around so that you can clean it off. Yeah, we take our phones everywhere. Thank you for that. I think, again, I'll just run through this quickly. It's just reiteration, but with food safety, repetition is the key because it takes a lot to get it into your brain. So make sure you have hand washing stations. They can be as simple as a water cooler with a bucket and soap, not just a bar of soap, but a soap pump, paper towels, and a trash can. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. And make sure that the water is free of E. coli. So make it as I always say make it as easy as possible to do the right thing. Masks are not necessary. I think everyone knows that by now, but you still see people out with masks. Perhaps they're actually sick, perhaps they're particularly vulnerable, but it is not necessary to have masks. Cleaning and disinfecting surfaces, cutting tools, tongs, totes, railings, doorknobs. And I was also thinking this week that high-touch surfaces on cold storage units and in your vehicles, those should be getting cleaned. Door handles, steering wheels, all of that kind of thing. This is an important thing. The bleach concentration for COVID-19 is higher than usual, so 5 tablespoons of bleach per gallon of water. I believe it's 4 teaspoons of bleach per quart of water. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. Try and use non-porous surfaces as much as you can. And just think if there are any touch points you can eliminate, get rid of them. And if not, disinfect them. So in case a customer asks, again, there's no evidence that the virus causes COVID-19, that the virus that causes COVID-19 is spread by eating food that might inadvertently contain small amounts of virus. So you can possibly even eat food that has some virus and it may not harm you. Produce has not been identified as a risk factor in the transmission of other respiratory virus outbreaks. So they're basing this on data from past respiratory virus outbreaks. So yes, washing produce before consumption is a good practice. It's not recommended that you wash it with dish soap or detergent. It's not recommended that you treat produce with a chemical disinfectant at home. Just wash it well. Train your workers. Here are some tools. There are many tools out there. They'll be on the Future Harvest resource page. And as I said, make it easy to do the right thing. Keep things clean and tidy and organized. And then one of the last things I want to say is educate and track the visitors to your property. I think it's really actually very important that you have a visitor's log at this time, because you want to know how to find somebody and track them. If someone finds out that they have contracted the virus, and also make sure, communicate with your buyers that they will let you know if they have come to your farm and then found out that they've contracted the virus. So having some kind of sign, this is my general sign for food, health, and hygiene policies. You may want something that's more specific for COVID-19, but having a sign up that you require people to read and then a visitor's log that you require them to sign, I think is a really important thing to do right now. And then finally, over the next few months, we will be doing on-farm food safety workshops. We have webinars and video tutorials on the Future Harvest Food Safety Toolkit site. And we will, well, this is one of those, and we actually have another one tomorrow at 12 p.m., which was supposed to be about just post-harvest handling with a little bit of food safety, but we've switched that around and there'll be more food safety, but also some more on post-harvest handling. I do provide one-on-one gap plan writing, and I can also do a simpler food safety plan that isn't necessarily going to get you a gap audit, but it's probably enough for many farmers who are doing direct sales. And I can provide one-on-one guidance on compliance with FSMA and GAP certification.
I'll interject that that's free.
And all of that is free, yes. Thank you, Dina. And Aaliyah Fraser, who many of you will know, is also, she was one of my food safety educator trainees last year. She's going to be learning how to do some of this stuff as well. And we will have 2 more food safety educator trainees coming on board this year, Crystal Foreman and Dana Barnes, who are also getting more educated on how to provide this education and services to everybody. And that is me. Let me stop sharing.
Lindsay, that's great. Thank you. Thank you to all the farmers for imparting great information. So I'm going to turn it over to Gail Taylor on our staff. And so Lori, unmute Gail, and she will be asking questions from the chat. And keep entering in your ideas here, policy ideas, the tips that you have to impart, and suggestions for what services you need from Future Harvest in terms of education, providing resources, policy pushes we need to work with partners to champion, that kind of thing. So, Gail.
All right. First of all, I just want to say thank you all so much for being so brave and coming on and sharing your great ideas, but also being honest about what we don't know yet and how we can learn together. The first question that I wanted to put out for everybody, and maybe we can go in the order I'll say them as I see you on the screen, the girlies, and then 1 Acre, and then Emma, and then Lindsay. There's a lot of questions about packaging. How do you handle packaging differently now for CSA, farmers markets, and doing deliveries? And specifically, can you speak to questions about whether or not you're going to use disposable bags, biodegradable bags? Can people return cloth bags? Have you all talked about that and what the answers are, how you've gone through that?
So what we're doing, we have biodegradable bags at the farmers market for their, in general, for their general purchasing. Most of my markets now, people are better about bringing their own bags. The biodegradable bags are extraordinarily expensive. So right now, and then the bags that we are using to bag stuff like onions, scallions, radishes, we like to call them bok choy bags, actually, because they're just a perfect size to get a head of bok choy into them. We're using a lot of those to package individual orders. So, and then with our home deliveries, we're putting things into cooler bags. If the homeowner has left us a cooler out, then we'll put the stuff into their cooler and keep our bag. But going forward, somebody asked me today, I'll leave my bag so you can pick it up and reuse it. It's like, we're not gonna be able to reuse them. So what else was the question? Did I cover that? How else can I answer the question?
Yeah, that was a big question. Maybe actually let's go to Lindsay next. If you could answer this question for us about when we can let our customers reuse bags, or what should be our new standard operating procedures for receiving back wax boxes, or anything that previously we would let sit for a week in our barn and then give to the CSA members the next week.
So reusing wax boxes, it's always been recommended that you use a new plastic liner each time. So you can get those boxes back as long as you've got an impermeable barrier between them and the produce. Reusing bags, I feel horrible about this because I have a bag of bags. I'm a personal chef and I have a bag of bags in my car. I think right now, probably not for now.
So, and this whole thing has been hard on the plastic use for sure. At least maybe there's a lot of people who aren't driving to work and we can save the environment that way this week. I don't know.
Yeah.
But the plastic use, we have been trying at our farm to lessen the amount of plastic we use. Over the past couple of years, obviously, we're in the same boat as everybody else where, we shouldn't be using so much plastic, but now we're going to have to go back to it. And we do use like plastic liners in our bags and in our crates when we go to the market.
And I mean, if it's possible, if it's feasible, you could ask people to bring a washable plastic container that they've cleaned before they bring it, a tote of their own. If people are coming to pick up. And you don't have to put things in bags necessarily, you just put it all into the tote.
What about at the packing house? Emma, I know that you have a pretty big operation there, so you're talking about how much space you have between yourself and your staff. Have you all worked out how are you going to social distance yourselves? How will you run through new standard operating procedures of making sure that you're not next to each other filling all of these boxes?
Well, that's a great question. To answer your original question, I think in trying to use plastic, less. We're trying to consolidate as many items as we can into a liner bag, like bunched items into the same bags wherever possible, and using some number of compostable bags where possible. We are also not reusing waxed boxes or not waxed boxes at this time. And we were actually planning to do that anyway because of FSMA. So this sort of just validated that decision for us. But in terms of packing CSA boxes, right now we're just having one person do it. And and that's been me. So I think packing more boxes, we do use a lot of wheels. So we have a couple items on dollies, and we'll go down the line. So say we have bags of potatoes, for example, and we use a dolly to push them down as we're packing boxes down the row. And we could easily have someone coming next with the next item to be 6 feet behind the first person.
Let's see. We'll come back to you, Charlotte and Mike, in a minute. Let's move to the next question. Tips for communicating and staying connected with customers digitally. How are you acquiring new customers? And especially for Emma, I think we're all really interested in hearing about the Facebook group that you set up that sounds really interesting and inspiring, creating this new virtual community with your CSA members. So questions for everybody, but let's start with you again, Emma. Talk a little bit about how you've been using the internet to stay connected to your CSA members.
Well, we've always had a closed Facebook group for our CSA members where they can share recipe ideas. And we've had that going for a long time. But we have launched a few new initiatives in it, like cooking challenge. We did a 14-day cooking challenge. We're on day 10 today. So a lot of people are home and are interested in learning new skills, and we're trying to encourage folks to do that by cooking along on some more challenging things. Like we did a spiralized sweet potato peanut sauce today. And so a lot of people might not have done that kind of thing before. And so we also just started a closed Facebook group for our gardener friends, for people who buy plants from us and want to share gardening tips. And that has really taken off. A lot of people are really excited to have a place to share about their gardens. A lot of people are unsure about how to start seeds, and so we're sharing resources with them in that group on how to do that. And yeah, so I guess for the most part, we're trying to promote engagement in our groups by sharing free resources with people and to keep them connected to our local community.
Can I make one question? Because I wasn't able to talk for the first one, which
Yes,
is
please.
I suggest that this year we as a group can order maybe a pallet of biodegradable bags and get a much better break. So if everybody is talking about, like I always buy, 2 cases of it at a time, and that lasts me the season. Now you have to understand that these biodegradable bags only last really 1 year, especially if you keep them, if they're hot in your hot barn, they don't even last a year very well. But I would be happy to put together like a Google sheet saying how many we order. I order from BioBag, so we can just put a BioBag order together. They can ship it here, and we can pick it up and save a lot of money because those BioBags are very expensive. I agree. And if we're going to go through a lot of them this year as a bunch of farmers, we should do that. So we could probably, yes, exactly right. We could buy a pallet of it.
So Mike, that's a wonderful idea. And we at Future Harvest have been talking about doing bulk buying. Several farmers have been encouraging us to start a program. So let's work together to make that happen sooner rather than later.
Okay. I'll do it.
Mike, do you want to continue now to the next question and talk about your digital communication with customers? I'm especially interested how you're communicating with your wholesale customers.
Well, so I don't have any wholesale customers, really, do we?
Nope.
We don't have any wholesale customers, really. So I've been encouraged to email less just because I think that our email boxes are getting overflowed. So I really try to send maybe once a month, there's an update about what's going on the farm. And then once we start harvesting, I send a weekly, very quick, hey, this is what's in your share this week. But as of right now, I'm trying to be actively quiet, even though I do need more CSA customers, because I think people are just so inundated with information that is becoming burdensome. So I'm trying to, I use Instagram, and who knows who's following it, but I'm trying to be less communicative because I think people are just overwhelmed. That's my personal opinion.
But I would also say that over the past 2 weeks, we have sent out a bunch of emails because everyone is just trying to understand what's going on. And people are really concerned about what we're doing to mitigate risk here on the farm. And so one way that moving forward is that we have a blog post. And so whenever there's a new update with our procedures here and our methods here, we're gonna post to the blog so we're not constantly inundating people with emails.
Of the three of you farms, how many of you have posted COVID-19 or coronavirus policies on your website or publicly in response to customers?
Yes, we have.
We have not.
Emma?
We sent an email telling people how we're tweaking our procedures. And I sent an email or several to my employees about our on-farm procedures.
Becky, let's turn to you now. This question about communication with customers, and especially there have been a lot of specific questions about the Chesapeake Farm to Table platform and model. I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit more about that.
So as far as communication for Calvert Skiff Farm, we are just getting back to the farmers markets. So that is one of my bigger bases that I like to reach out to, but I really haven't had to because we're sort of waiting to see what's going on. And even if things were normal, we wouldn't have started our markets anyway. And then my Sunday market is a little bit in flux, so I'm afraid to even say anything. My CSA customers, I have totally put them on hold. And the ones who have been with me longest understand that communication is not my forte. So I try to get something out to them. I try, I have a plan, but we are pretty overwhelmed right now. So they have been last on the list. For Chesapeake Farm to Table, I do have somebody who sends out a MailChimp every week to them. And what is happening with Chesapeake Farm to Table is that is just changing by the day. Again, 2 weeks ago, we were totally restaurants. Now we're totally home sales. And I'm getting a lot of new customers and they all need a lot of education. There's a lot of emailing going back and forth. We're doing our best to reach them through MailChimp.
Can you talk a little bit about more for people who might be interested in trying to model that Chesapeake Farm to Table idea as the hub, sort of farmers coming together and distributing together? People have asked questions about what your distribution range is, what kind of sophomore platform you use, just maybe some quick tips that you could offer people.
So Chesapeake Farm to Table uses Local Food Marketplace as our platform. I have, like I said, 27 farmers on the site, and we vet the farmers. We train them on the software. Then they're sort of on their own, and they get a pick list twice a week, and they have to show up at the hub with that product, and then they help sort here. We have a system in place for them to sort. What was the rest of the question?
Oh, just the local food marketplace is it's a pretty dynamic platform. There's a lot of flexibility in it. I don't want to talk about, I'm sure if anyone is interested in that is, it would be, you can contact them and they can tell you about it. We use it for
We're
5
like on our
years.
5th year. So getting it set up, it was a little bit of a challenge. We had a bunch of different models that we had looked at to go off of. And so we managed to get it all in place. Most of the farmers are very close to us, so it's easy for them to get here. One of our bigger issues with a farmer of any distance is that the site will not allow me to have a minimum order per farm. I can have a minimum order per customer, but they're allowed to order from whomever they like. So if I have a farmer in, Philadelphia, and they can come down here, well, we don't go that far, but if they can come down here with $1,000 worth of produce, terrific. But if they get an order for, $5 worth of produce, they have to show up. But it's been very interesting that we've all worked so well cooperatively together that if we run out of spring mix, I can call one of the other farmers and they can fill my order for me.
So another question was asked about how far we're distributing. So we right now, we have scaled back on our distribution area because we just cannot meet the demand for some of the further out people. So we are really just delivering in Baltimore City and Baltimore County at this time. We used to have a larger delivery area, but we just cannot go any further than just those 2 areas.
So we need a few more systems in place to be able to expand our reach. It was not hard to get set up. We're all working very cooperatively together. And then, the farmers are bouncing off of each other all the time, different ideas, and, helping each other out. If they don't have product or they need product or somebody needs to make a switch, they come in here and moan and groan with one another. If they, need to vent, that works out too.
One of the nice things about, we've been doing this a while, we sort of created a community of farmers. Everybody works with each other. Everybody understands what their other farmers are doing. There's a real synergy that's developed that has allowed us to meet this stressful period for everybody. I mean, it's a good stress, but, stressful nonetheless.
How do you manage the delivery fees and the delivery radius?
That's a really good question because we just haven't. I'm sitting at the computer a lot more today than I was this time 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago, it was really simple and I only had a couple customers a week that I had to look at. So now there's a system in place within the software that allows me to give them a delivery zone. And then Chesapeake Farm to Table does have a markup on the farmers' prices. So that helps with the delivery costs, but we knew that our numbers were not perfect. And we have just instituted a delivery fee, a standard delivery fee to everybody. If anybody's really far out of our range, we charge more to deliver there. But now I'm just like, I can't get there.
Thank you. Lindsay, let's turn to you. I feel like we could spend all day just asking you rapid fire questions. Yes, no, please help. I'll try to summarize a few of the questions that have been coming through. For example, how do we deal with the fact that all of us workers might be coming to the farm with the virus and we're asymptomatic? And if you could just maybe give us some things we might not be thinking about, places where it might be spreading that we should be paying more attention to. And then also a specific question came through, does Sanidate kill coronavirus?
Okay, I'm going to read a little FDA statement. So as of March 20th, at the time of this writing, FDA stated, so the question was, should produce be recalled if handled or harvested when a worker was potentially shedding virus? And at this time of writing, FDA stated they did not anticipate that food products would need to be recalled or be withdrawn from the market because of an employee ill due to COVID-19, as there is no evidence of illness resulting from virus transmission on food or food packaging. So this that particular statement is referring more to people who are selling into the larger marketplace, but I think it could apply here as well. When we talk about food safety in general, and I go to a farm and do a risk assessment, there's all kinds of things that farmers may not have thought about. With the virus, I feel like it's the same for you as it is for a store owner or an individual at their home. It's most important that we keep our distance. It's most important that we are doing proper hand washing every time we need to hand wash, using gloves properly when we need to use gloves, doing the social distancing. I'm not, and all of the usual things that you may be handling, cleaning and sanitizing those. An important thing is to know the difference between cleaning and sanitizing. So you can't sanitize something that's dirty. So it's important that you clean, if something is obviously dirty, that you clean it before you try to disinfect it or sanitize it. There's also a difference between disinfection and sanitizing, but I'm not going to get into that right now.
Can you say that again? Like today I was using the wheelbarrow at my farm and I sprayed a bleach solution on it, but I should have first scrubbed the handle with soap and water.
Or just wiped off debris. So any organic matter is going to reduce the efficacy of the sanitizer. So depending on whether something is a food contact surface, if it's a food contact surface, you always want to clean it, which could be just spraying it off with strong, powerful water. It could be scrubbing it. It could be scrubbing it with soap and water before you sanitize. In this instance, things that you're handling a lot that are not necessarily that, well, they could be dirty, I guess, because you may have been in the soil and then on that handle. So wipe it off first and then spray on the sanitizer or the disinfectant. And there may be others on this call who've thought of things that I haven't. I've seen there's a bunch of people on here, food safety people. In terms of sanitate says yes. It is able to kill. It's not always used as look at that face. It's not always used as a kill step. Love it when it freezes when you do weird faces. So it's typically is used to prevent cross-contamination on water, in water, I should say, in wash water. And on surfaces. But you'd have to go to the label directions to find out how to use it as an actual disinfectant, which is a little different from a sanitizer. The EPA has put out a list of disinfectants, and I put that on the resource list. It doesn't include Sanidate, but that doesn't mean it shouldn't. It does include other peracetic acid products, so I imagine Sanidate would fall in there, and you could call them. They're very good about telling you what they can and can't do. There was a question in there about egg cartons. I'll just answer quickly. You shouldn't be reusing egg cartons because of salmonella on eggs. So I compost my pulp egg cartons. If you're using plastic or styrofoam, use them as an art project. Did I miss anything, Gail?
Just anything like you come to our farms all the time to do inspections or consultations. What are some things that you often see us doing that now with this definitely, no, we shouldn't be doing that anymore?
Ooh,
well, about before that, I feel like we're in a different time now. Like I'm always thinking about food safety. How do I keep foodborne illnesses from getting into the food of my customers? Right. And now I'm thinking about food safety is how do I make sure that that thing that I touched, and I don't know if I contaminated it with this coronavirus, how do I make sure that it's not getting to the person who's going to touch it after me, who's somebody I work with, not someone who's my customer?
So it's the hard surfaces you really have to worry about with touching, and that is all about cleaning and sanitizing. Cleaning and disinfecting in this instance, which is why the stronger bleach solution, the 5 tablespoons to a gallon of water, because it's more of a disinfectant. In glove use, which I already talked about, I see that all the time, that people are not using gloves properly. They just tell people willy-nilly to wear gloves and don't instruct them on how to use them properly. Reusable gloves is a really important one. Reusable gloves are shoved in your back pocket. They're shoved in your glove compartment. They're stuck in a box in the back of the truck. That is not how you can, if you're harvesting product and handling product that's about to be sold to somebody or eaten by somebody, those gloves have to be cleaned on a regular basis. And you have to, people need to know that you pick out the clean gloves at the beginning of the day. And if they seem like they might have been contaminated, you put them in the dirty glove pile or box container, and you get another pair of clean gloves. So you want to have plenty of gloves around. Any kind of tool that you use for cutting things is going to be much more likely to contaminate because it's creating a wound on the stem or in some other part of the harvestable crop. So make sure those things get washed and sanitized on a regular basis every day when in use, basically. And make sure that you're storing anything that you're handling that needs to be stored somewhere on a hook or on a don't just throw things into a container that doesn't get cleaned on a regular basis. Find a way, either have a clean container for your clean stuff, or find a way of hanging things up, and have it really easy to distinguish between what is clean and what is dirty, so people don't pick up the wrong thing and just go right back in with a dirty implement. So yeah, washing hands, washing and sanitizing frequently. Washing and sanitizing harvest totes every time you use them, not necessarily going to help you with coronavirus, to be honest, but doing it as frequently as you can that is practical.
Can I ask a question?
Mm-hmm.
What about using a hot water pressure washer to clean bins? Does hot water make a difference, or is it just, or would it be a big tub of sanitizer? Like, what is there a difference?
It would have to be boiling water because then it's a kill step. So don't worry about hot water. But one thing to think about when you're pressure washing is, where is that water going? Where is that aerosolized water going? So make sure you're not washing it somewhere where it's going to then settle on everything around it that is sensitive. At Dicot Farm, they set up just shower curtains to prevent that from happening.
Before I move on to the next question, I just wanted to open it up if any of the farmers want to give some quick tips too for how you've been keeping those often need to clean and sanitize items, surfaces clean.
I keep running around with little bleach wipes, you know, with on all the door handles, I have a spray bottle of bleach out in the barn as well, so we can hit the frequently touched surfaces.
Just want to say we all should have bought stock in Clorox and Zoom before this happened.
Yeah, I mean, we've incorporated it into our daily routines. So we've just made it somebody's job to sanitize all of the shared surfaces. So the microwave, the door handles, everything like that. So somebody just hits that before work every day. And I think just really adopting some of these things into the daily procedures is going to be the most successful. But in terms of washing and sanitizing, I think we already kind of do all of that because of our food safety plan and because of FSMA. So it's just a little bit more, more signage is helping and making sure somebody's assigned to doing it every day.
So I just want to give a little time reminder. It's 1:24. We can go for a little bit longer. The call is supposed to end at 1:30. If there are people on the call who really want to go longer, put something in the chat and we'll see if we can ask our farmers to stay just a few minutes longer, but otherwise we'll wrap up at 1:30. So
I am happy to take emails from people if they have questions when we're finished.
We have one more question here, which was for all of the farmers, how are you dealing with labor? And are you anticipating employee shortages, especially as people are now having to stay home with their kids from school? And how are you working through those compensation issues or paid sick time? Emma, you talked about it a little bit, but maybe if you guys want to elaborate a little bit more.
So our employees are all, first of all, they're all part-time, and then they're all in, not all, but they are associated with the restaurant industry. So they're out of work. So they're happy to come here to work. So I don't anticipate having a labor shortage. I'm going to see what happens with my farmers market staff, but I suspect that we'll be fine. And especially if we have to go where we can only have 2 people at the stand because of social distancing and a smaller stand, smaller setup, then I'll have a fine crew to draw from, if you will.
I had more job applicants this week than I have ever had. I think because a lot of people are getting laid off or uncertain of what their career is looking like. So I know that there's going to be available folks to work. I'm not sure about paid sick days, like how much of a burden that's going to be on my business, but I know that it's the right call right now. And frankly, because we're able to be still operational, I feel really grateful for that compared to a lot of businesses, especially the restaurants, who have to close and are still trying to keep folks on staff with absolutely zero cash flow coming in. So I think we'll have to just figure that one out.
I think for us, I would say the thing I had right before this all happened, I had sent an email out to all my old members saying, listen, this year we're going to be paying everybody that works at the farm 15% more.
15%.
15% more. So because of the way I sell, my budget's known ahead of time, so it doesn't really matter. Nothing really changes. It's basically, if you figure out what I'm paying somebody, whatever I'm paying them, I just divide it by 52 weeks, and so I'm just going to be paying them the entire year as like a salaried employee. And nothing changes on my end, assuming because I get my 150 CSA members and my budget's already set. So I don't have to really worry per se about sick leave. If somebody needs to take a couple of days off because they're sick, they're getting paid anyway. So I guess it's already baked into the cake, I guess, if you will, of how I manage people that work with me. The only other thing I was going to say is we've had the same people for a few years now. And so they kind of already get the deal, and I'm not looking for new employees, which makes it helpful because everybody kind of already understands our business practices and protocols and things of that nature and washing. And so I don't have to reteach some of these new, we'll probably get into more of this stuff now that we're talking about all this, but generally speaking, if it was a normal year, I'm not teaching anything new because they've already had a season at least of doing the practices that we do on the farm.
Maybe one more question, Gail, and then we should wrap it up. I just want to interject here in terms of labor. Future Harvest has a job bulletin board on its homepage. You're already saying you're getting inundated by requests, but if you're looking for other labor, if you want to post jobs or post that you're seeking a job, do so on that site.
Yeah, maybe as a closeout question for everyone, you all have sort of talked a lot about making a pivot, being flexible, adjusting to this new world. And I was just wondering if you all could talk a little bit in closing about how you think that we can respond to the increased support of local farms past this crisis. Let's start with you, Mike. The perpetual optimist, how are we going to keep this going?
Oh, I think that the only way we can keep it going, in my opinion, always is that we have to educate the customer. So it's constantly, and not constantly in the sense of getting emails all the time, but being honest. When I send my emails out, I'm honest to the point of probably being inappropriate sometimes with the educational part. We're saying that this is not easy work. We're not being paid very well to do it. We need to just make sure that the customer, the member, understands all the good with the bad. So it's not just everything's flowery and rosy. We're having fun here picking our beets or whatever it is. We have to tell them the crap too, because if we don't tell them the crap, then they just think this is easy and fun, and they don't get the sense that this is real serious work that we're trying to do, and it's not easy to do. And there's plenty of farms that when I started are already out of business. So if you're a new farmer, I appreciate the enthusiasm, but you have to sustain it for a long period of time so you don't go out of business. So how do you do that? Be honest with yourself, be honest with your customer base, and make sure it's clear what your boundaries are of how to do this for the long haul. Because being a CSA farm for 1 year is great, but it'd be better if you could do it for 5, 10, 15, and then, or as Becky's been doing it for 25 years. So being honest with yourself and being honest with your customer base with all the good and the crap, I think will go a long way to kind of continue the momentum of saying, hey, this is actually more important than we
Then at this time.
Yeah, fair enough.
Charlotte?
I have nothing more to add.
What?
No, I think, but there's also like you can convey the struggle that comes along with farming, but also that there's hope. And right now, sorry,
You're
it's
good.
corny, but right now that like farms are serving as a source of hope during this time, and just really just keeping that current going.
And Emma, you've already been going through some big changes this year.
Oh yeah. I did just buy a farm 3 months ago, for everyone who doesn't know that. So we were closing out our 6 leased sites we had been leasing for the past 8 years. So I think that onboarding is more important now than ever before, considering that we will have new customers interested in our products, and making sure that we have a good onboarding system. So, we're familiar with doing this because we work with CSA anyway. And so we talk about people's food journeys and where they are. A lot of people come to us because they are sick, or their doctor, they got diagnosed with diabetes, or they need to eat more vegetables for whatever reason. And so we've always embraced people on their food journeys where they are. But I think adding extra support for new customers this year is going to be really important, adding whatever sort of content you can come up with to offer help as they learn what seasonality means. So people might be frustrated, anticipating their frustrations, like in the spring, especially because it's March right now, we don't have that many options on our farms. So saying that, hey, it's going to be greens heavy for a while, it's going to be storage crop heavy for a while. You're going to see a lot of kale and a lot of lettuce, and helping people eat through those items, and making sure that their expectations are correct, knowing, letting them know what a season looks like, and sharing that in advance will be really helpful to making sure they stay a customer in the future.
That's great advice. And Becky, the wise.
So I have to probably join in with pretty much what everybody else said. But, first of all, we are so lucky to have such a strong community of small local farms in this region. We're so lucky to have Chesapeake Farm to Table, but we're, sorry, I just totally lost my train of thought. So we are so lucky to have Future Harvest in our back pocket. And so I think what Emma was saying is that we have all, as small farmers, our entire careers have been doing nothing but educating people. And let's keep up the good work, because we are at the forefront of it, and we need to teach it. We need to continue that teaching. We need to be honest with our customers. Good job, Michael. And tell them what's going on, but let's not complain. Let's not whine, because nobody likes a whiny, grumpy farmer. We just need to keep smiling, keep going. And I think one of the more things that we have learned over the years is now's our chance to shine. Don't screw up. We have seen, there way back a long time ago, perhaps, maybe there was this CSA and they started and it was really great. And then they were in the Sun paper because they didn't have any product to give to their CSA customers. So that kind of stuff, let's not mess up, because we have this whole thing in our hand. Let's get out there to the farmers markets. Let's talk to our customers. Let's be safe. Let's keep our food safe. Let's go forward, because we have a huge opportunity here.
That music was perfectly timed. Okay, well, I'll wrap it up. Thank you so much, Becky. I can't say anything better closing words than what you said. That was just wonderful. And I also want to reiterate, local is the new normal. Buy local, buy safe. Farmers are serving as the source of hope. And now is our time to shine, so don't screw up. So those are my takeaways. We will be curating this. Sorry to the folks who couldn't get on the Zoom call. We're learning our way around Zoom. So this will all be public and available to everybody who registered and beyond. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Dina.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Can the Future Harvest staff stay on the call?
So you don't need us anymore, Dina?
Nope, you're
Okay, great.
dismissed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good work.
Bye.
Get to work.
Bye.
Yeah, I'm trying to read it.